Hey everyone, welcome to Sketch Day. I'm Spencer, where every day, every time I post, I give you something new about sketching and a little bit about my process. So, last time we covered sketching a drill using a ballpoint pen. And so, what we're going to do now is move from an analog or pen and paper type sketch to something more digital. So, I've got with me my trusty iPad Pro. And actually, I think since the last time I posted, this is the latest version of the iPad Pro, which I haven't reviewed yet. But I'll probably do a video in the future about kind of my top tips and tricks and things I love about it. So without further ado, let's get started on sketching digitally and coloring what we did on pen and paper. So I've got here Procreate and pretty simple interface. I've hit the plus sign. I'm going to do a new file that is the size of my screen. So you can see here's my screen. There's nothing on it. Let me grab my pencil here. And I've got a few brushes I use. As you can see, I've got this custom brush section for brushes that I created or have made up. In particular, I've made this pencil tool called the Spencil. And the reason I did that is I used to use Autodesk Sketchbook Pro, and they actually have a really great pencil tool, but I prefer the gesture controls and the interface of Procreate to Sketchbook Pro currently. So if you're listening and would love to chat, let me know. Okay, so with Procreate, all I have to do is hit this little wrench in the top left corner, and the first button that says image, I'm going to take a photo, which opens my camera here. And I want to capture all of this. So I've rotated the sketch 90 degrees, and using my iPad in the right spot, I can take a picture. Boom. So now I have a picture of the sketch that I did on paper that I can bring in. I'm going to hit use photo, which is going to bring it into Procreate, and just with my two fingers I can rotate this page and put it wherever I want. Okay. Now at this point I have two options. I can back the opacity off the layer and resketch the whole thing, or I can actually just use the lines on the layer. So with a few adjustments here, I'm going to go to hue, saturation, brightness. I'm going to up the brightness on this sketch like so, and let's adjust the curves, and the curves are going to essentially allow me to make the lines lighter and darker. Okay, just like so. And on color balance, okay, maybe not color balance. Wrong one, hue, saturation, brightness. I want to crank the saturation all the way down. And the reason for that is I want a nice black and white sketch so that I can manipulate the layer blending mode and get what I want. So there's a couple little weird things on this sketch, because I did sketch it on paper. So some of my construction lines, I'm just going to come in and erase, clean up just a little bit. Okay, just like so. And for a final sketch, we can actually come in and add an outline where we need it to be. Okay, just like so. All right. So if this were a power tool, I feel like, we should probably pick some colors that are like primary colors. So what I'm going to do here is, oops, wrong tool. Just finish cleaning up just a little bit. Fair warning, my iPad has been acting up a little bit lately and sticking, so there may be times on screen where I'm painting where this kind of sticks. So to kind of, for the sake of time anyways, because I don't want to make this video too long, I'm just going to show you guys. So creating a new layer, I'm going to drop this layer down, and what I've done is tapped this little M. It was an N before. I'm going to tap multiply, and multiply will make all the stuff on that layer that is black. It'll show through on the layer below it, but everything that's white will automatically go transparent. Okay, so now I can actually come in and let's add a few layers here. Fair warning as well, I don't typically label my layers, so if that's something you need to do, then feel free. So what I'm actually doing here is painting on the layer below, okay? So here I've got the green, and I'm just going to block in the color where I want it to be. Okay, so maybe that section's green, and this section here is green. Okay, like so. And I'm just painting over painting right now. And maybe the battery itself is green as well. And in painting over, what this does is kind of just reduces a little bit of the stress. Like I don't have to get it perfectly in the lines, because if for some reason I want to cover up what I did, so like here, I knew I was going to paint this section kind of a gray color. So I have my gray selected, and I'm just going to paint this whole thing in with gray. And because it's on a layer that's above the green, I can cover up the green, if I'm careful, with that gray, just like so. And the reason I use this color blocking technique is it allows me some flexibility later on. So a lot of times I work with clients where they want to change colors or a few details about the design. And by color blocking, if they do request that a material be changed or color, it's easy to isolate that layer, make the changes, and have the sketch essentially updated to match their criteria without too much work or effort on my part. So kind of a nice habit to get into if you're just getting into sketching digitally. So always work in a way that is non-destructive if possible. All right, so I got those main sections blocked in, got my green there. Excuse me. And actually let's do my charcoal gray here as well for the rest of the battery. And right now the sketch is probably looking really flat, but it should go pretty quickly once we start adding our highlights and shadows. All right, and for the button, I'm going to make this just a little bit darker, almost black color. All right, so highlights. Easiest way to think about this is pick a light source. So I'm going to pick one that's coming from the top and to the right, like so. And on a new layer, using white, and I've got two options here. I've got this brush that I kind of like. It's a round kind of paintbrush. So I'm going to use that just to start painting in some of my light surfaces here. Anything essentially that would be receiving light from above. Okay, just like so. Even this edge, maybe just a little bit lighter. And we can tweak and adjust this as we go. I'm going to have some highlight on the back here. And this brush in particular is available in the default Procreate. It's just a round digital paintbrush that's in the program. But I like it because it's quick. It feels kind of sketchy, almost like a marker. So if you're used to using markers, it's a really great brush. They'll give you kind of that marker feel. All right, and then I want to kind of paint in a little bit of a highlight and fade that out. This brush is pressure sensitive. And if you're using a pressure sensitive brush, it's really easy to get highlights and shadow cores where you want them. Okay, so a little bit of highlight here, like so, and then I'm going to erase what I don't need, because this surface, if I were to analyze it, right, you've got flat and goes down and then over and down and over, down and then over, right? So keeping that in mind, this surface here, this surface is going to be darker because it's turning away from the light source. Okay. And if you want to keep that as a reminder, you can always make that layer a little bit lighter, or if it's going to be confusing, just don't worry about it. All right, so a little bit more here, light where we need it. Keeping it just nice and loose as I go here. So like I said, this green is kind of bugging me. So I can actually pick that layer, go back to my filters, and I can adjust hue, saturation, brightness. So I can adjust the hue, right? So I can come in and say, oh, you know what? I kind of like the screwdriver to be kind of this turquoise Makita style color. So let's go ahead and use that. And immediately my sketch essentially is updated. So let's go ahead and paint in some darks. And I'm using just straight black, but again, because I can adjust the opacity and this is a separate layer, or should be, yep, separate layer, I'm just gonna add shadows where I need them. Now, the reason this works, if you just take a minute, stop sketching, stop watching the video, whatever you're doing, and look around the room, wherever there is a change in surface direction, we have contrast, okay? So look at the tone of one wall or one edge of an object and look at the edge next to it, and you'll notice that there is contrast there. And so what I'm doing is using that principle of contrast, right, to show that there is a change in surface direction on this product. Okay, so things like here where we have this little overhang, and if we paint a little bit dark, we can always erase it. Okay, again, because it's on a separate layer, I can come in, erase a little bit, or erase for an effect, for example. Okay, so I'm just adding shadow where I kind of need to have it. Again, just keeping the sketch really loose. If I wanted to get tight, I could. But the goal here just being pulling the surfaces out where we need them, adding shadow where we need them so that the sketch overall reads well three-dimensionally. Alright, just a little bit more here. And you can see this is a pretty quick process. Once you have your sketch essentially laid out, it's really easy to just paint with light and dark and get something that you want. So just to tighten this up a little bit, I'm actually going to take one of my brushes here that I call Inker. And I also made this as well. It's just a really nice opaque digital paintbrush, and I can use that to essentially clean up my sketch where I need it, okay? Or add some contrast as well. So just moving around the outside of the product here. Okay, just like that. And of course, 2 fingers, pinch to zoom, really nice feature. I'm going a little bit heavier with the line weight on the bottom because that's where the product rather is presumably resting on a surface, and so just giving it that extra bit of line weight on the bottom kind of grounds it to the sketch page as I'm drawing here. Okay, almost done. Now, just as we did digitally with the black, I can come in with a little bit of white, and I'll use the stencil for this one, but I can add in highlights where I need them. Just little pops to show edges, might be part lines or definition on the sketch itself. Things like where two parts meet and we want to show that there is an actual separation there. We can add just a little bit of white, and if our sketch line wasn't showing up right, we can add the black in as well. Okay, just a little bit of white there. Just where we kind of need it. And for texture, on these little rubber sections, I'm just adding a few white dots as well. Maybe some text, directional arrow, big brand. It's my brand DFM. And just to tidy this up, I'm gonna add in a little bit of a drop shadow. Nice solid black shadow here. And of course, the front of the drill is square, and we've got kind of a stepping thing happening. So the extension of my shadow would naturally follow the cross section of the product. Okay. In other words, these lines project down as well. Or those edges, rather, project down. Okay. Let's turn this arrow off. So there you can see I've quickly taken the sketch that we did on paper, taken a photo with my iPad, and quickly added some color and a few sketch lines to then enhance this sketch so that it's something that I could present to a client or put into my portfolio. So this is actually pretty incredible, because back in the day when I started, we'd have to sketch something out, scan it, process that scan, put it into Photoshop, and then hopefully, if you had a Wacom tablet, be able to manipulate that sketching. Otherwise, you'd have to use a computer mouse. So pretty awesome that I could just do that in a few seconds with my iPad Pro. Well, thanks again for joining me here on Sketch Today, and hopefully you've picked something up. If you have, be sure to give it back to the broader community. In other words, pay it forward. That's what I'm thinking of. Pay it forward. So, as I said before, I don't make a lot of money doing this. And if you want to support me, feel free to use the links below to purchase your materials. There's also a Patreon page set up. But more importantly, pay it forward. If there's a student or friend or someone struggling or just interested in drawing, tell them about the site, share something that you've learned, and hopefully, they'll be able to be better as well. You can find me online, primarily on Instagram at sketchaday.com. I'm also on Facebook at facebook.com/sketchaday. And be sure to check out my latest endeavor, phase0.co, where I'm kind of just putting things out that I've created and want to share with all of you. So there you'll find my book of 500 pages of sketches that I did in a month, as well as some other t-shirt designs and apparel that are available for purchase. Well, thanks again, and we'll see you next time right here on Sketch A Day.